Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Men for the Win is sponsored by the Grand Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? Whether you're upsizing or downsizing, the Grand Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Grand Group by emailing thegran, that's G-R-A-N, group, at edinarealty.com, or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. The Grand Group with Edina Realty, 7-time Minneapolis-St. Paul Magazine Super Agent Award winners.
On this episode, David, Dan, and Hoges give their predictions for the 2025 Minnesota Twins baseball season. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win. My name is David Kufis. With me, as always, is Dan Thompson and special third chair in studio, Andrew Hoges Hoganson. Boys, it's here. The games, they're going to start to count for real. It's not spring training. It's not the off season. Any news articles we see from here on out are going to have legitimate consequences on this team's performance in the 2025 season. Are you excited for real Twins baseball?
I hate to put a damper on this, David, but the Twins articles in the preseason and the spring training actually matter quite a bit. Royce Lewis has to get injured at least once, and then Brooks Lee has to have back spasms before we can really move on to like the actual season.
Yeah, and then the news about the ownership and the Pohlads are in extreme debt, and then they don't want to sell. It's not shaping up to be a great start here, David.
No, it's not great, to be honest. To start the season,
Sorry,
there have been a few
just a
notes.
pessimistic start right there.
I thought how I opened the show, I felt on a pretty optimistic
you were
note.
going.
I was excited. I thought you guys were going to be all like, oh, yes, I'm so pumped for Twins baseball. And you're both like, well, most of the team died. We just called some random dudes from Town Ball hoping that they'll fill in. No, but hey, folks, if you are new to the show, thanks so much for tuning in. If you're a returning listener, thanks as always for your support. This will not be our usual format. Typically, we do an episode after each Twin series. We have segments. We do a quick series recap. But here, boys, here it's time for our season prediction show. Now, before we get into it, and before we give off all of our Nostradamus brilliant predictions that I'm sure will come to fruition, we have some housekeeping here about this Twins team. First of all, Twins TV. If you're a Paul Bunyan TV subscriber, didn't know that was a thing. That's
incredible.
A real thing.
Dan Hayes was having a heyday with that one. He could not get over it.
It's like two truths and a lie. Like, which one of these is real?
I know, the hot dish whatever channel and
Oofta,
anyway,
I think was another one that he came up with. That's good stuff.
If you are a Paul Bunyan subscriber, there's a whole list of these small, more regional
some
cable
of them
networks.
may be true, some of them maybe not. If you're looking at Dan Hayes' Twitter,
You'll know though, right? Because if you have it, you'll know if it's real or
true.
not.
That is very true.
But anyway, the Twins TV has come to agreement with a few of these networks so that there will be a channel for you to watch Twins baseball. The big players, though, DirecTV, Comcast, all of those guys are still sort of up in the air. We don't know if they're going to be on. It sounds like from Dan Hayes' reporting that, yes, there will be a deal reached. And so people who watched the team last season will likely be able to watch the team again this season with their current package.
So is that true, though? You're not going to have to pay any extra in order to get that package then? Or do you have to at least have that sports package already, even though before it would just include like the FanDuel Sports Network or whatever it was?
Yeah, I think as long as the package that you had at the end of last season had the Twins games on it, it will have it again this season. And you can use then whatever your provider login is to connect to Twins TV.
Well, that's nice.
So if you already bought Twins TV, but you also have a cable subscription, I think you can probably figure out a way. I don't think you need to have both. So either cancel cable.
This is so complicated.
It's insane.
For something that started with, it's going to be really simple. You just subscribe to Twins TV and then you're done.
Well, to be fair, David, that's the route we're going, right? As season ticket holders, we get instead of being $100, we get it for $50, which I think is pretty fair. And both you and I cut the cord and the satellite, as I understand it.
Yes.
So, I mean, I'm saving a lot of money with this.
You can't cut the satellite. The satellite, it's not a physical. Anyway.
Yes. And then I had to get my F1 subscription. So I think I'm still coming out ahead, though, financially. But anyway, folks, more details to come on that, I'm sure. But just figure it out so you're not double paying. That's all I'm trying to tell folks, is that there are updates. Figure out what they are. Figure out what you need to do to watch this.
I mean, those Twins are $425 million in debt, so maybe they want that double paying and help them out a little
Great
bit.
segue. That's why we have Hoges on the show, folks, for brilliant segues like that. The Twins sale update. The Pohlads would like $1.7 billion. Now, keep in mind, as soon as we get above like 10K, boys, it's like monopoly money to me, right? Like,
but
it's
it is
like,
to them, too.
If you can't afford a used Honda Civic with the amount of money we're talking about, it no longer becomes real in my mind. It's like that money that can't be real. But so there's a couple of things that came out about this. First of all, the Twins have $425 million of debt, which I guess is some of the highest figures in all of baseball.
But it's
which
not,
is nuts.
But it's not like, I mean, it is one of the higher one, but it isn't absurd because apparently when the who just got sold, the Nationals, I think it was
Orioles,
whoever it was, they had like $300 million in debt, which was like I didn't realize that these teams operated in the red so often. But yeah, I guess you learned something.
Well, as a financial guru myself, let me explain to you good debt versus bad
Thanks,
debt.
David.
This isn't great. No, I'm just kidding. But the big thing here is that because the Twins actually lease the stadium from the state of Minnesota, that also comes into play when a new ownership group is looking at things. But here's the kicker, boys. And Dan, I have to be honest, I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Oh, gosh.
I was looking for some sort of metaphor or comparison to explain what's happening here. But so the Twins, first of all, what they're saying is we need to have a higher evaluation so that we don't lose more money because of the debt we're in when we're selling this team. Further, Joe Pohlad supposedly wants to stay in charge of the team.
That's so bold.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
So not only are they saying you need to pay us more money because we were incompetent when it comes to money management, we also want to keep one of the people who's in charge of the team currently to continue to be in charge. Dan, can you paint a picture of something that can explain to me what this is like?
Oh, man. That is putting me on the spot. It would be like, like me saying,
Take your time.
This is painful. Like, David, I need you to buy my entire board game collection from me, but I'm going to actually keep the board games at my house in Spokane and you don't get to play with them. Like, would that work?
And you're going to break half of them before you give it to them.
There you go. Yes.
Also, it turns out Dan doesn't actually own the board games.
Yeah, right. The part I just don't understand it either, because apparently they were valued at $1.5 billion, and they were like, no, that's way too low. When they want 1.7, I realize that's $200 million, which is a significant amount. But I don't know.
About half the debt they owe.
Well, yeah, but the whole thing is just absolutely ridiculous. When I was reading that story this week, I was like, this isn't real life. Like, I'm reading The Onion right now. Like, this is absolutely insane. It was like Ishbia dropped out and they were like, nope, and just we're gonna sabotage the rest of it. Like, I don't know what we were expecting, I guess. And David, I would like to call out, you were like, oh, it'll still get done, it's gonna happen. And Dan and I were like, no, we're in it for the long haul.
I'm a believer, Hoax. Okay,
Still?
I'm an optimist.
Did you call Mr. Target yet? Like, has he? Is that why? Like,
I keep writing those letters, but nobody responds. It's just, I wrote Mr. Target. I wrote Mr. Noodles and Company. I wrote Mr. Chipotle. Nobody had interest.
And I'm
the
hungry
thing that gets
now.
me too is the picture they keep showing of Joe Pohlad, like walking near the dugout and this big smile. And I finally figured it out. You know what he looks like? He looks like Sven Sundgaard, the meteorologist.
I think that's a compliment. I would take that as a compliment.
Well,
Nostradamus, Sven Sundgaard, like the same job, right? Looking into the future.
Yes. And
Doesn't
about
look bright
as
for
accurate
Joe.
as the weathermen are.
Yeah.
We talk about weathermen way too much on this show.
We know Paul Douglas thing.
unbelievable.
Yeah, this is great.
Oh my! I forgot about the Paul Douglas. I think he retweeted us, didn't he?
He
Like,
did,
that
he
was
did.
a pretty
Very
exciting
generous
time
man.
in the history of the podcast. Okay, boys. Wow. Always, when there's three of us together, we have a hard time staying on topic. But let's circle back here to some roster updates. The finalized roster came out, and I don't think at the beginning of camp any of us, I mean, this bracket may be worse than your March Madness bracket had you filled out a Twins roster prior to the start of the season. But so first of all, Brooks Lee will start the season on the IL with back tightness. And Mickey Gasper, the first base, second base catcher, he got cleated and had a very terrible gash on his leg that needed stitches.
6 of
and
them.
He was wearing a boot. Yeah, and Rocco's like, it's the worst thing I've ever seen. And then in the same sentence, Rocco was like, but he'll be fine. We'll get him on the team.
I did
to
find that amusing as well too. It was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I was like, how bad can this possibly be? But Dan, you had a note here about some of the Gasper quotes.
Well, it just first of all, he seems like a very likable guy. So I'll just pull up the article. This is from the Star Tribune. I love how Nightingale said this. That Gasper was a 27th round pick in 2018 out of Bryant University, a round that no longer exists in the Major League Baseball draft. He's an old. He's 29. He's been kind of a journeyman. He didn't debut until last season. I just think he seems like a pretty cool guy. Yeah, see, there you go. He toughed it out. He's like the rookie in the flesh. So I think
the
this is
rookie
cool.
was real too. I mean,
that's true. He was the rookie, not in fiction. So I think that this is a cool story for a guy. Rocco says, he's had to watch a lot of guys probably get called up that were next to him and guys that he was probably out producing the entire time. And I think that's the key, is that he has produced at AAA. Now he gets a chance to seemingly do it with a cleated leg. And I still don't understand how he's going to play.
Do we know, is he named after Mickey Mantle or Mickey Mouse? Which Mickey are we talking about here? It had to be somebody. Nobody just names their kid Mickey.
Who's the?
Without there
what
being
about Mickey
something
Rooney?
more to it.
Yeah, that's
Mickey
what I was like.
Rooney?
Who's
That
the
would
like
work
the short little guy? I couldn't think of the name.
I doubt it's Mickey Rooney if I were a betting man. But in the same vein, actually, Deshaun Kersey is also making the roster for the first time for a big league club to start the season. And that was probably more unexpected, I would say. Austin Martin got optioned down to AAA. So the two guys making the team who you wouldn't have expected at the beginning of spring training, Mickey Gasper and Deshaun Kersey, make the roster, along with Eddie Julian, Jose Miranda. It's just a pretty fascinating lineup here we have to start the season, boys.
And then you look at the pitching side. Brock Stewart's going to start on the 15-day IL. And I thought this was interesting that the Twins told Iverson Castellanos and Scott Blewett that they wouldn't get the final spot. And then we got to wait for a little while. And I wondered, do you think that they were playing the waiver wire and just kind of waiting to see who might be available at that point?
Yep, I absolutely do. Like, they for sure were looking at that just to see what was going to happen. And I guess nothing caught their eye. But guess who did catch their eye again? An old flame.
4.99 star Randy Dobnak here has made
that's fair too.
Has made your Twins roster. Can you believe it?
Well, this is what's interesting to me, is I think that it's his contract that kind of made this possible, in the sense that once they have to send him down, if he ever has to clear waivers again, nobody's going to pick him up.
No.
He's making $3 million this year. He still has an option for next year, I think, or there's maybe a buyout or something like that for next year, which I think it's $1 million buyout for next year. This is such a fascinating deal that he signed. What a great thing for Randy Dobnak to just be this forever AAA / call him up in a pinch, and everybody loves him.
Yeah, but that's what I was just gonna say. He's one of those guys that every time he gets called up, I'm always happy. Because he's just such a likable guy. You have other guys that you're like, oh man, not him again. Are we really going back to that well again? Randy Dobnak, I'll never have that. I appreciate him.
Don't worry, be happy.
You can't let it die. Although he's a pitcher now, I guess.
Yeah. That's what I was expecting. The news to come out that the Twins signed Joey Gallo to a minor league deal to be the eighth reliever.
Oh man, that would have been incredible. That would have been awesome. I would have been about as happy as Randy Dobnak if that happened.
But if you're Randy Dobnak at that spot and you don't get called up because Joey Gallo
that might
got
be
brought
retirement
back.
right there. You know what, we're done.
So the starting rotation has been set for quite some time. We've known this entering camp, which is great that all these guys are leaving camp healthy. Lopez, Ryan, Ober, Paddock, and SWR. And then your relievers, again, this has shifted a bit because Tonkin and Stewart are on the IL, but it's Duran, Jax, Coulomb, Sands, Topa, Alcala, Varland, and our boy Randy Dobnak. Your roster, boys, to start the season, do you think, just looking at it, only Royce Lewis out of the big three is down, and almost all of the pitchers of consequence are healthy,
David.
Except for Brock Stewart.
No.
You don't even know what I'm going to say.
I don't even care. We are losing one of our three. We're losing one of the big three, and you're like, this is so Minnesota. It doesn't get more Minnesota than this. Would you take it? No.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding me? You are a liar.
I'm
shocked
not shocked
if at
by
the start
it,
of spring training,
but I'm allowed to hope for more. Like one of our
that's
best
not the
three.
Question. You and Dan, you do this all the time. I hate it so much when you guys change the question I would ask it.
I didn't even let you finish the question. To be fair,
you mess with the phrasing to make it a different question that you're like, this is not the first time I've gone off about this on this show. Oh my goodness. It's so frustrating. What I was gonna say is at the beginning of camp, Hoges, if I told you that you get through all of spring training and you leave and the only people of consequence on the IL are Brooks Lee, Royce Lewis, and Brock Stewart, you take that deal.
No.
You do.
How is that
There's
only?
no way you don't.
There's no way I do
don't.
it. I want
Because
them all
the only
healthy.
person on that list that actually matters is Royce Lewis, and we knew he was going to be injured for most of the season anyway.
Brooks Lee matters a lot.
Baseman.
Brooks Lee sort of matters, but we don't really know that. His sample size was less than Royce Lewis's
we can't
sample
do that
size.
again.
We are.
There's not enough time in the evening.
We got all the time in the world, Hoges. It's a season preview show. I hope this show is 4 hours long and people take the whole week to listen to it.
Attempt to be a gentleman.
My goodness. I don't understand it, but it's like this thing, when I say something like, I like the color blue, and my wife says, you hate red? That's how it feels sometimes with you boys, where it's like, no, that's not what I said even a little bit.
Anyhow,
okay. Well, I don't even know what I'm looking at on the notes. I'm shaking with rage.
Well,
right
I can't
now.
even see the roster because you hid that one, so I don't even know who's on this team.
Look at the tab that says 2025 roster and schedule, Dan. It's the same tab we've had for 5 seasons.
It's on the right side now.
You did switch it. It
it's
used to
not
be on
the
the
other
left.
tab that you have. It's very broken down.
That was the spring training tab. Is this the spring training show right now, boys? No.
All right, fair enough.
We're in the regular season.
You got a lineup and everything. Look at that. Wallner batting first. Yeah, I like that.
Oh my good. I am losing my mind, and the season hasn't even begun. Okay, trying to find my spot in the notes.
There's so much
here.
stuff in these spreadsheets. Have you ever noticed that, Dan? Like, there's
it's like a cave. It's like one of those caves in Thailand. Like you just get lost.
Going and
Caves
going
in What are we talking about? Okay, enough, boys. Quick note on this roster: Louis Varland, who we just mentioned, he would like his name on the scoreboard to read as Louis Varland.
It's just I'm so confused by this.
It's very confusing because so my nephew's name is Louis. Big fan of the show. Shout out to nephew Louis. But so his name is spelled Louis, Louis, but we call him Louis. Well, I found out that, did you know that you can pronounce Louis as Louis also? Like that's how
Martin Saint Louis,
or like
the hockey player,
King
Louis the 14th.
Yeah, right.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
But you don't think about it that way when you're talking to somebody named Louis, right? You would always spell it IE if you were talking to somebody named Louis.
No, I would think LOUIS.
No, you would. Folks, you're lying this entire show. The entire show. Anyway, but the thing is, what's funny about it
with a French accent.
So he wants it to be Lewis on the scoreboard, but he still wants to be called Louis.
So
yes,
he's
he still
Louis,
wants to be
but with an
called
S.
Louis. Correct.
That's how he needs to introduce himself. Is Louis with an S, and then I'll understand.
No. Oh my goodness, boys! We haven't even gotten to the predictions yet, and it's just the slowest possible moving show.
But hold on. You said your nephew he like code switches here, like he's Lewis with some people and Louis with others. Is that what you said?
No, what?
I thought.
No, I'm saying that his proper name, like on his driver's license when he can drive, will be Louis. His name is Lewis, but he goes by Louis.
Louis. That's so confusing.
Okay, is your name Dan or Daniel? Dan on your driver's license.
It's Daniel. But
okay, how is that difficult for you to understand then?
Because it's spelled.
You could technically say his is spelled
not
the same way.
Fool me once, strike one. But fool me twice, strike three.
I pronounce all the letters whatever it says. Like I don't. It's not like Denis. Like they say
Not every name is French, Dan.
I did not think I would spend this much time laughing about the name Lewis. Incidentally,
Anyway.
who do we open the season against this year? Do you like that? Was that a good transition? Are we there yet?
No, we still have other notes to talk about. I don't even want to bring up this next one. Would you rather have Matt Wallner or Max Kepler in right field for this season? Max Kepler did look really good in left for the Phillies, and he had a great spring.
You're the only one who wants
We're about
Max
to
Kepler.
begin bonding adamantium to weapon exoskeleton.
Okay. Well, we'll see who's higher on Matt Wallner come this prediction segment here. We're going to get into the schedule here in a moment, but we do have to issue a correction from last episode. Dan and I were talking about the Twins, let's call it bad luck with Japanese-born players, and we overlooked Kenta Maeda, Dan, who was a pretty important part of this team for a couple of
Wasn't he
seasons.
like the third place Cy Young votes a
I think
couple
he was
years
second.
ago?
Yeah.
I think he finished second that year.
Second? Yeah.
I mean,
that was an
I
oversight.
think Garrett Cole won, and it was a landslide, but still.
Anyway, so we apologize to Kenta Maeda, is what I'm trying to say. We should have mentioned him when we were talking about Japanese Twins players.
Is he still in the league?
He was with the Tigers. I don't know if he signed anywhere
maybe
after
not.
that. Okay, boys, let's move into this season schedule breakdown. We'll take a look at what this roster. We'll take a look at the.
You went to label the 2025
I'm so frustrated.
roster and schedule. Maybe you would have
No,
just
that's not what
schedule first.
That's what it's been labeled from the very beginning.
I don't
It
know.
just doesn't feel like it. It feels like there was another tab.
There is another tab, the spring training tab, that says who's on the 40 men and who's in
that's
camp.
where I
and
got
who's out.
used to going to look for the roster. It's because
Yeah,
it
but
was so
we've-
good.
Comparatively, the number of shows we've done with this being the primary roster
in a
tab
while,
compared
though.
to the number of
Hundreds.
shows.
It's been a
Yeah.
while.
It's been months.
It's in the hundreds. We've done hundreds of shows where this is the proper tab.
Oh, this is not
Okay.
good.
Let's break down the schedule a little bit for your Minnesota Twins. A really interesting breakdown, I'd say. And I complained about this a few episodes ago. My biggest concern is that if the rankings hold true and the teams that we expect to be good are good, to end the season, this is a rough go. You go the Diamondbacks, Yankees, Guardians, Rangers, Phillies to close out the season. That's a lot of losses on the scoreboard, boys, if those teams are as good as we think they're going to be.
But we'll see. I mean, you do this wonderfully every year, but then you update it after the All-Star break, right, with new rankings. So we'll have to see how these shape up. I think if I'm looking at those teams now, I think the Yankees look less fearsome now because of the guys, Garrett Cole's injury and, some other guys. I think the Rangers are going to be good. I think the Phillies will be good, which the Guardians maybe, and the Diamondbacks, you just kind of never know. But the Yankees don't look as scary to me now as they used to, except they're the Yankees.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I agree with Dan. Like, obviously, baseball has a decent amount of parity in the middle. But the thing with this is, though, a lot of those teams are a little bit blue blood that we are pretty confident that they are going to be good, right? We're talking about the Phillies who are going to be good. The Yankees, they're not as fearsome, but they still are going to be good. But yeah, we'll see what that looks like. I think that Guardian series in September could be great. Like, hopefully that's like got a lot of division implications because it'd be fun to be caring about games that late in September again.
I think another thing that stands out to me when I look earlier is in April, the Twins, they start with 3 of the first 4 on the road, but then they're home for 4 of the next 5 series in what could be some kind of chilly baseball still in April. So I hope that, there's good weather at least. They play the Tigers, the Mets, then go to the Braves, and then come back for the White Sox and Angels. Winnable series, you would think. I think you made this point too, David. Like early on in the season, they need to rack up some wins here for all kinds of reasons. It's always good to obviously get out to a good start, 70-53. But I think overall, it's a pretty balanced schedule in terms of, it's not a lot of long road trips, not a lot of long homestands.
The other thing that's interesting too is the Central going to be that good again this year? Like, are the Tigers and the Royals, and even the Guardians, are they still going to be that competitive? We were arguably the best division in baseball last year. They had 3 of the 4 ALDS teams.
Hang on. Let's bump the brakes.
Who are you going to put? I mean, you could put the NL West, but outside of that, I think it's a good argument. And the NL West, outside of the Padres and the Dodgers, wasn't that strong. We had 3 of the 4 ALDS teams. I mean, I know that you're talking about just advancing out of a wild card, but that's 3 out of the 4
that's exactly
ALDS
what I'm
teams,
talking
plus the Twins tanking at the end of the year. Like, if you talked about the Twins at the beginning of September, they were 70-53. So that's a good team that didn't even make the playoffs out of the Central. And it's just different than years past is more of what my point is, where it hasn't been just a cakewalk where we can beat up on our own division.
Well, it is sort of, because you still have 16 wins for each of these teams against the
That
White
is
Sox,
true.
basically.
That's a
So
solid point.
I understand what you're saying, that like, okay, yes, they made the postseason. 3 of these teams made the divisional round. Still, the wild card round is basically a toss-up
It's
more
true.
often than not, unless you have aces on the mound for either side. And so I just don't know that we can sort of hang our hats on this idea that the AL Central was so great last season because of their playoff performance, when really was an AL Central team in the World Series? No. Would they have been competitive in the divisional round in the NL? Not a chance.
No, but we got both wild cards in the AL with a strong AL, top of the AL. I mean, I think it's still an impressive year for that division from where they've been. Like, that matters. It's the whole year. And I get that they're getting 16 wins against the White Sox, but I think the division will drop off a little bit. But Detroit has so many young guys that are good. If they don't sophomore slump, they're a dangerous team for years to come.
I'm hesitant to sign on to believe that the AL Central was as good as some people believe they were last season. To get back into the schedule a little bit here, though, I think a very important stretch actually happens from the middle of June to the All-Star break, because there is where we're seeing some really suspect teams. I think there are a lot of games here that we need to win, and we could go in with a very strong outlook into the All-Star break. We go Astros, Reds, Brewers, Mariners, Tigers, Marlins, Rays, Cubs, Pirates. Those are some very winnable series. Again, this is all sort of conjecture because we don't know how good these teams are going to be. But if we think these teams are what they are, that's a stretch here where the Twins really need to rack up some wins, because things just get harder after the All-Star break.
Well, and I mean not instantly though, because they got the Rockies and the Nationals sandwiched around the Dodgers right after the All-Star break. So like outside of the Dodgers, that's like 8 series in a row that are even more than that are very winnable for this team. It's an interesting year because I remember, I don't know if it was 2 years ago, where you said if they're 500 at the All-Star break, they're in it, because it gets a lot easier after that. This does feel, again, we're speaking without knowing what these teams look like, and baseball's weird, but it does feel like they need a pretty solid record going into that break.
And keep in mind, too, they're not going to have Royce Lewis, I would think, through April. And so then you're looking at maybe he comes back for, maybe the Orioles series in early May, something like that. It's a home series.
Yeah,
so.
and then you'd have him for the Orioles, the Giants, and then back to the IL, do you think? Or do you think
just, for a few games. So. He's only got 2 hamstrings, right? So
yeah, but how many ACLs does he have?
That's true.
David, no, don't even say it.
Okay, yes. Obviously, I hope the best for Royce Lewis. I hope he does not remain injured, and I hope he has a very healthy return and he stays on the field for the whole season.
You were the chosen one.
Yeah. Exactly.
But if you told me that 2 out of the 3 guys are going to make the opening day roster, I'd take it.
Hey, 2 episodes. Why aren't you harking on Dan? 2 episodes ago, Dan was like, well, this is best case scenario that Royce Lewis is injured.
That's not what I meant. I didn't say it was best case scenario. Why am I getting dragged
it's not fun
into
when
this
people
here?
change the phrasing, is it, Dan?
All right. You asked also here about dream road trip. And so we talked a little bit before how there isn't anymore because of the way that the schedule goes. It feels like there's not a lot of like drivable trips. But I did dream this up. So I think in early August, this could be cool. And this is when David, you're going to be at your gaming convention. But
yeah,
they're at Cleveland, at Detroit. They're home against the Royals, then for a series, which gives you plenty of time to drive to New York City to go see them play the Yankees. I think that's as close as I could get, is catching those 3 teams on the road, because at least they're kind of drivable. I look at the rest and it's like, well, I can fly there, and then I could fly there, and then I could fly home. So it makes me sad that they don't have like that traditional West Coast trip. They do have the Mariners and the A's, but there's no like LA team tacked onto that. It's the Rays, and that's partially because of the weird scheduling thing with the Rays on how they flipped the dates. But I just don't see one.
I mean, I think I'm going to start in Tampa Bay, then I'll drive to Seattle, and then just make a quick trip, down whatever highway number it is to get to Oakland or wherever the Athletics play baseball nowadays.
Super close to each other too, like very, very close to each other.
Yeah, that one is a little weird. At least they get the day off after the Rays series to travel across the country. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of long for that. Hoges, is there one you'd want to go to?
That's what's tough about this, because all the ones that look attractive where you can get anything out of it are all like AL Central teams where they could just have like a longer road trip. Yeah. And that's not like, I've been to Kaufman. Detroit doesn't really have a lot of appeal to me as like a great city to go visit. No offense to Detroit or anything, but I guess a little bit. Like, I don't know. It's a tough one. For me this year, I'm taking my annual trip to Seattle, which I'm excited to do that. I've never been to that.
Oh, you are going
before.
To that series?
Yeah, I am. I've never. I've
that's
never.
Great. I haven't even bought tickets yet.
I have not either, but I'm very excited. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So, and it's
bring a whole bunch of stickers, boys.
Yeah, right.
Find every Twins fan.
I'm going to add that to the spreadsheet here in a comment.
I would think there would be a lot of Twins fans out there. I would imagine. Do you
there
normally
are.
see
When
a lot
I've been
there?
in games there's a lot of Twins fans. Yeah. That's really cool.
Any other thoughts here on the schedule, boys?
Just excited for baseball.
Yeah.
This is a good year for me. I'm going to see the Twins play at the Dodgers Stadium, and then I get to go to Texas. I get to go to the Angels as well. Not for Twins games, but I think I'm going to hit 5 this year. So I'm super excited for the summer. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That's sweet.
Absolutely. Well, let's go to what everybody came for, boys. Our brilliant predictions. Every season we do this. Every season we get better, I think. Our predictions
That's
get
not
better.
true.
That might be revisionist history.
The winners write the history, and I'm the one who created the spreadsheet, so our predictions were brilliant.
If only there weren't recordings of us doing all of these every
I knew there was a flaw in this plan. But so anyway, pretty clear what we do here, folks. We're going to go through a number of statistical categories. We're going to give our predictions for the performance of these players, and then we'll revisit this at the end of the season as we always do. Hopefully, boys, with our World Series winning Twins gear on. New hats, new shirts, it'd be the whole thing. But we can only hope. Let's see what we predict happens. Hoges is rocking his 91 World Champion sweatshirt. Love it. I'm wearing a new hat. Neither of you commented. Thank you.
I commented in the text earlier. It looks lovely.
But
I'm
now we're
wearing
live
my
on air
Nico
for the whole
Medved
people.
shirt, for the Gophers. So this is great.
Good deal. Okay, well, let's jump in it here, boys. So we do not know what we have all picked. So we filled out our predictions. Then we blacked out the cells. So this might be very uneventful. We might agree in every single category. It could happen.
I accidentally
Unlikely.
saw a number and we didn't agree on everything. I'll be honest.
Okay. So we're always going to go left to right. We're going to start with Dan, then we'll go to me, and then we'll go to Hoges, and then we'll reveal them as we go. So our first category here is most home runs. Dan Thompson, who will lead this team in homers this season?
I picked Matt Wallner with 35. He's got 6 in spring training. I don't see anybody else who is more likely to hit that many home runs this year. So that's why I went with him.
Well,
thank you. Yeah.
In a shocking turn of events, I have also picked Matt Wallner, and I've selected 38 as the number of home runs for Mr. Wallner, and I think it's very doable, Dan Thompson, especially knowing he's batting leadoff. He's going to get more at-bats than just about anybody, especially when there's a right-hander on the mound. The boy has power. There's no denying that, and to be honest, his whole season, it's going to matter how often he's hit by pitches, but other than that, all we really care about is how many home runs is this boy going to hit.
We're about to begin bonding adamantium to weapon exoskeleton.
He's projected to get 16 on Baseball Reference. The two of you with
Baloney.
home runs every single year are just he's going to hit 100. Do we need to bring up Miguel Sano again?
Oh, man,
I just
best
feel like
shape
you
of
guys
his
need
life.
to stop doing the home run one because I get nervous about every guy
But
that
this
you
is
pick.
this is legit. Who did you pick then? You make your big reveal.
Yeah, well, talking
I
about
chose
guys...
Matt Wallner with 35 home runs.
Talking about guys not getting injured, I went with Mr. Byron Buxton, and I think he's going to hit 30 home runs. I think I've
That's
said
not
this.
that much more reasonable than our perspective, Hoges.
It's 8 more reasonable than yours. But the unreasonable part of it is I think he's going to be healthy all year. I think I say that every single season preview. I think he's going to be healthy all year. I see a good year out of Byron Buxton. It feels like he got a full, true offseason where he wasn't trying to rehab anything at the end of the year. I feel good about where he's at right now. He played over 100 games last year. I think he's going to hit 30 home runs.
Well, we will see what happens. We ran some polls online also. I couldn't do it where you could pick a number also, but the listeners or the followers on X have selected Matt Wallner to hit the most home runs for your Twins for 2025.
Wise choice. All right. Next up is batting average. I did a lot of hemming and hawing. This was, Thursday morning at 8 a.m. of the NCAA tournament. Who do I pick in the 10-7 matchups? Kind of hemming and hawing. I went with this guy.
I am not throwing away my
Oh, boy.
Ooh.
So I was recalling one of my favorite memories from last summer when I was at a game with David and Jose Miranda was in the midst of his 25 at bats in a row hit streak or something like that. The legend grows.
Not in the middle.
And I just think this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to pick who is the best pure hitter on this team. And I think Jose Miranda is as good of a candidate as anybody. And so that's why I picked him. I think he's going to bat 298.
Would you say that he's probably going to be one of the top 5 hitters in the American League this year?
That is tricky. I mean, he could be. I think if he added 15 points to that, then I think he would be. Right? I mean, if he's batting 313, then sure. But David, you have a smug look on your face. So how about you give your
If you
prediction?
picked Miranda, David.
It could not be more smug is what this face is right now, Dan. Because knowing how my perspective on Jose Miranda is living rent-free in your head, so much so that it is impacted your predictions just makes me so incredibly happy. And yes, I do believe Jose Miranda will have a very good season, and I do believe he will be one of the most dangerous hitters in the MLB in the next couple of seasons. However, all that being said, my batting average, as boring as it is, Luis Arise. Oh, is he not? No, I went with Carlos Correa. Funnily enough, though, I thought, yes, 298. I thought that was interesting. So I think that so much of how much success this team has is based on Carlos Correa, and I think he's going to bat more for average this season. I think that he's going to be more protective about his legs, and I don't know that he's going to swing out of his shoes as often.
He doesn't want one disease to spread to the other one, so he's got to be.
It's hereditary.
Yeah, you don't talk about saying what we didn't say. I did not say that.
You said that
I meant
it
like
was
genetic.
hereditary.
It's like
that his plantar fasciitis was hereditary, so it moved from his right foot to his left foot.
I almost went with Carlos Correa. I really wanted to. I was tempted, but I ended up switching it last minute. I went to Mr. Backspasm himself, Brooks Lee.
No!
I went with 297, just a hair under you guys. And when I was doing my calculations for a lot of other stuff that's to come, I had to like readjust because I had people that should have had a higher batting average based on other things that I was trying to do later, and it didn't make sense to do that well. I think Brooks Lee's going to have a comeback year this year. I think if he gets healthy, he's going to hit to contact with a little bit more power, and I think he's got that smooth, sweet swing, and we're going to see a good... We're not going to see a sophomore slump that we saw with everyone else, and we're going to see a good year out of Brooks Lee.
He was my pick until, like, you could check the receipts, David. I'm sure you know how to do that in Google Sheets. But I did have Brooks Lee in that spot, and then this back injury stuff, it worries me, because if I had to pick the purest hitter on this team, I do think it's Brooks Lee.
And it's weird that we're that high on a guy that hit, I think, 242 last year or something like that. But he started off so well, and then he slumped at the end, which happens to some of those guys their first year because of how long the Major League Baseball season is, I think. So I'm excited to see what he does this year. His quotes are saying that he doesn't think that this injury is nearly as bad. It's higher up on his back, and it's in more of a muscle area than anything else. So hopefully we'll see him soon.
Yeah, the listeners went with Carlos Correa and Jose Miranda. And then, Dan, just a quick clarifier. So Jose Miranda is the purest hitter on the roster, but Brooks Lee is the purest pure hitter on the roster.
Is that what I said?
I'm just curious. Is there an upper echelon where it's the purest pure hitter on the roster? Is that like
Tony's
Emmanuel
win.
Rodriguez?
Luis Arise.
I'm just trying to understand the scale that you've made for level of pureness in hitting.
It would have to be the purest of the purest pure.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Let's keep moving here on to on base percentage, Mr. Thompson.
All right, this is another guy I'm pretty high on this year, and David, you've already talked about him, but I think it's gonna be Carlos Correa. I have him with an on-base percentage of 378, which is pretty close to where he's been on average, kind of over the last, really most of his career. I think he's a smart hitter, right? And he is going to. So if he's not the purest of pure hitters, he's the smartest of smart hitters. And so provided he's healthy, and all this is provided he's healthy. But I also think he will have a good year.
I want to build championship culture.
He does, Dan. He wants to build championship culture. I also went with Carlos Correa, with a much lower on-base percentage of 348. 378 feels a bit high. I know that I said he's not going to be swinging out of his shoes, but he's still going to be swinging, I would assume. So I have Correa here at 348.
Well, okay, but let me go back. So his career stats on base percentage last year was 388. The year before was 312, and then the years before that 366, 326. So he has it in him to go as. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is about average of those years if you take out 2023.
Perhaps I'm not as optimistic that he's going to walk as much as you believe he will.
Well, that 388 from last year really threw me for a loop too, because I originally was wanting him in this area too because of how good his OBP has been. But I like Matt Wallner batting leadoff, getting on base more than anyone else this year. I had Matt Wallner with a 390 OBP. Wow. I think he's going to get hit a lot. He doesn't have those gigantic biceps that I do that are going to get in the way of his swing this year. It's going to be much smoother. I don't know if it's the smoothest of smooth swing. I think that might be Brooks Lee, and he has like a smoother. So I don't know, but I think Wallner's going to get on base a lot. I'm really high on him. David, also, I feel like I'm obligated to tell you this. He is on my fantasy baseball team this year. We actually chose to extend him. We would have had to lose him after this year, but we extended his contract because we just see a lot of potential in him. So we are paying him a bit more, but I'm excited for his potential for the Texas Cub Cobblers.
Just to put a couple of numbers in perspective, this is OBP, boys, not OPS that we're filling out this category. I just want to make sure you understand. So to put this in perspective, Dan, 378 would put Carlos Correa in the top 10 in all of baseball for on-base percentage.
He was 388 last year, David. He was 388 last year.
He was in like 12 games,
David, if
boys.
you're going to argue about whether or not guys qualify for stuff on that, I would have swept these every single year. But no, we're not going based off of that.
Well, okay. I think Hoges is trying to obfuscate for a moment here because he has to realize that this puts Matt Wallner in top 5 of all of baseball.
No, I believe it. Mark it down.
Write
Write it down. Now's the time to say it. I'll say it.
It's already on the spreadsheet. We don't have to write it down, Hoges. There's no reason to. It's already written. It's in stone here. Anyway, the listeners, the voters on X also put Matt Wallner as the lead guy. I doubt, however, if I put a follow-up poll that they would put him at 390 for an on-base percentage.
Isn't it kind of surprising, like how much love he's getting right now out of spring training? Like I'm not sad about it, and I think he will. Obviously, I picked him for a lot of this stuff, but it's exciting to see where this guy is and how bad his start was last year and what he turned it into. He's one of the few guys that really did have a great year last year, and I'm excited that we're all in agreement that he's going to have a good year.
Yeah, some of us a better year than others, it seems, because right now we've currently
you have him for 38 home runs, and you're going to start nitpicking.
I'm just saying, look at what his stat lines would be if we just currently look at our prediction.
It'd be good.
He's going to hit near 40 home runs, and he's going to get on base at a .400 clip.
He would be Wolverine.
We do always have a twin who ends up clearly being an MVP candidate or the winner whenever we do this. Like if we average them all out.
Like, okay, this guy doesn't exist in real life, but in the show, these numbers are totally realistic. Okay, let's keep moving here on to OPS, which I just can't wait for what these numbers are going to look like here. Dan,
okay, well, now you're making me feel like I got to check my math, but I went with Wallner, 914. And so why are you laughing?
No reason.
No reason. All right.
His career OBP is 866. Like that's not that crazy, David.
Oh boy.
894 last year's
OPS, exactly. It was 894 last year. If he has indeed become more svelte, right? And he's really kind of smoothed out his physique because it turns out you can be too strong.
If that's
to play
not
baseball.
a title right there.
It fits in with the home runs, right? So if I think he's going to hit 35 home runs, then I think an OPS with all of the times he's going to get hit by pitch. If I combine it with Hoges, then the 914 OPS makes a lot of sense.
Wax on, wax off.
That's Matt Wallner's smoothing out of his physique. Okay. Again, just to put things in perspective, that also puts Wallner in the top 10 for OPS last season. I also went with Matt Wallner I went with I thought relatively optimistic figure of 856.
If he's hitting 38 home runs, I don't even. Is he going to bat 210? Like,
okay.
It's not Adam Dunn, right?
Oh my goodness. No, I
gotta look up Adam Dunn's stats here. I really want that.
I would say that Jose Ramirez last season is a pretty good comparison, who hit 39 home runs with an OPS of 872. Whereas, an OPS of 914 is more or less Judge, Ohtani, Soto, Witt. But anyway, so I'm going with Matt Wallner as well. Man, it feels like Matt Wallner is all over this. He has a bad season. This is not going to bode well for our end of season wrap show, boys.
I mean, I'm looking at the stats. Okay, so 2006, Adam Dunn hit 40 home runs for the Reds. He batted 234 and his OPS was 855. And I bring that up because I don't think that Matt Wallner is quite the same player as Adam Dunn. I think he's a better hitter, a pure hitter there. He also walked 112
Well, you would
times.
hope so, because Adam Dunn forgot how to hit after one season.
It is weird, though. Wallner is incredibly unique, though, right? Because he's either going to get walked or hit a home run. It's not like he's like this double or single machine. Like, I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to see what his career ends up taking him this year, because he swings so hard that you just, when he hits the ball, it's going to go out. There's just no other option.
So is he your pick too, Hoges?
No. If we're talking about getting carried away with OPS, I finally went with C squared on this one.
My goodness.
at 950.
And Carlos Correa, I assumed it'd be Buxton. You have Carlos Correa with a 950 OPS.
Correa's numbers last year were phenomenal. He hit 310. His OBP was 388. He slugged 517, which when we do the math comes out to an OPS of 905. And he was hurt a lot. Like, I get that it was a small sample size. He did play in 86 games. I think he's healthy. I think he's motivated. I think he wants this championship culture. I think he is legitimately going to be a top 3 MVP candidate this year.
Okay.
Silence.
950, Hoges?
That's a big number.
It's a huge number.
That's a huge
talk
number.
to me at the end of the year. Talk to me.
David,
at
do
the end.
you have the stats? I'm sure you do.
Clearly, if Matt Wallner and Carlos Correa come anywhere near these numbers, the Twins win the World Series by a significant margin because they're scoring about 80 runs per game. But the listeners have selected Matt Wallner also for the highest OPS. Moving on now to the other side of the ball, we have ERA for starter.
Oh, man. All right, here we go. So with this one, it was hard to pick between Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, and Bailey Ober. I ended up going with Joe Ryan with an ERA of 3.6. I am hoping that he has learned the lessons of the past about being truthful about any injuries that he's got. But I do believe in his stuff. I like the fire that he has as a starting pitcher. So I think if I had to pick between those 3 guys, I slightly Joe Ryan over the other 2. But I feel really good about the top 3.
Dan, that is an incredibly reasonable number.
Sorry, yeah, and I think it's pretty. I think Aaron Gleeman put out his predictions too, which I had done these before that, but I think his ERA for Joe Ryan and kind of all the Twin starters was right around that for those top 3 guys.
Well, it's funny. Joe Ryan's ERA last year before he got hurt and was out for the year was 3.6. So and he was on fire last year. So I think that's an incredibly reasonable. I think I'd even take the under on that if I had to choose.
If he stays healthy and if he does get injured, if he says something, as opposed to just goes out and just decides to soft toss guys hitting homers for some reason, yeah, I think that's a very reasonable
Hoges, you were there
number.
for that game, weren't you, when Joe Ryan did that to Atlanta?
I did. I was. It was hilarious.
Oh, my gosh.
It was hilarious.
Where he's like, this is batting
cool.
practice, right?
This is so fun. Why did I come here? It's 98 out and 98% humidity. And I had a 7-year-old trash talking me while all of that was going on, a 7-year-old Braves fan.
To no one's surprise, my guy, Bailey Ober, is my pick with an ERA of 3.12. I think he's going to be phenomenal. I think Rocco will ensure that he never pitches against the Royals.
Yeah,
and I think he's going to be great. That's all it takes. You just don't have Bailey pitch against the Royals for whatever reason, and he's your guy. And also, more road starts than home starts, because from what I understand, when he's home, it's harder because of all the children to get proper sleep, whereas on the road, he's all by himself in the hotel. So I think Rocco, strategically, don't let him pitch against the Royals and make him pitch more away games than home games, and this guy's going to have a great season.
I look at, though, and that actually seems pretty reasonable compared to last year's starters. I wanted to make fun of you, but that would have ranked like 11th in the league, and
yeah.
I think that
I truly think
capable of that.
Mine's boring. I knew David was going to pick Ober just because he's got that signed picture that his daughter gave him. Like, there's a lot of history there, but I picked Bailey Ober too. I went a little less aggressive, and I picked him at a 3.21 ERA. But ultimately, you look at his numbers from the last couple of years, he's right around that mark. You take out those I mean, I know you're being a little bit tongue in cheek, but you take out those Royals starts, and he was even better than that for last year. So I feel really comfortable with that pick. I think he's going to be the ace at the end of this year. I think that guy has shown sustainability. I'm hopeful that he's healthy. His stuff seems to be very, very sustainable. He's not a guy that's throwing 98 where you're worried about his arm. I really like that Bailey Ober pick.
Yeah, and Bailey Ober was also the pick of the listeners online, which just speaks to the optimism that people have about what that guy is capable of.
He's making $3.55 million this year, too.
It's amazing. It's awesome.
Out of arbitration.
Love
That's
that guy.
Just nuts. So moving on to the ERA for relievers. Well, it's interesting. We've actually talked about this guy a lot more than I anticipated, but I am going to go with Louis Varland with an ERA of 2.3.
This isn't your crazy prediction either.
This is not, because I'm worried that just Duran is never going to be as dominant as he was. I do think Griffin Jacks could very easily do this, but I think Louis Varland is going to have a fantastic season coming out of the bullpen, and he's going to do the thing that we've seen him do, and he's been good when he's been in this role. I think he's going to embrace it. I think he's a back-end bullpen guy very quickly for this team. I think Brock Stewart, I'm worried about Brock Stewart's injuries too. I think there's a lot of opportunities for Louis, so I just see him having a great year.
I think that's an incredibly aggressive pick, but I like it. Like, I really do like it. I can definitely see that happening. I think he's probably that third or fourth guy now, maybe third with Brock Stewart being out. So it'd be interesting to see how much high leverage he gets, but which could actually help his ERA a ton at the beginning of the year as he works into that role. But yeah, I like it.
I'm boring. I chose the guy that everybody picked. This was the only poll which only allowed one person to receive votes. Griffin Jacks got all of the votes online. I gave him an ERA of 1.96.
Ooh.
In spring training, I think he like accidentally gave up a couple of hits with it was like batting average balls in play was at like .500.
That's what he does.
Ridiculous.
Like that just happens where those hits weird something crazy happens.
That is true. But to be honest, I feel bad about picking this as my prediction because I have been pretty hard on Griffin Jacks. Like, I think that some guys were really high on him when I was really questioning whether he was really the guy. Really hard to argue with the statistics here. I think if he stays healthy, I think he's closing games, to be honest with you. I think that's the route this is going to end up going.
Couldn't agree more. I agree. He was a stud at the end of the year last year. I also went with Griffin Jacks. I went even lower. I went 1.87. I think he's an all-star this year. I think he takes over for Duran. I'm worried about Duran losing some of that life on his fastball. Jacks doesn't have to rely on 101. He's throwing that 97. He held up really well, even though we were overusing him last year. I'm really excited about his year this year.
Well, moving on here to our more subjective category, I'd say, that doesn't have a necessarily a number attached to it, is season MVP, which I got to be honest, boys, looking at all of the names on our predictions thus far, so curious what you guys have ended up picking here.
So because baseball is about all five tools and not just about swinging and hitting the baseball, I went with Correa because of his defensive prowess as well. I do have him. I had to check my math here. So I have him batting 290. I think he is going to have a really good year. 378 with an on-base percentage, and then that makes a slugging percentage. And then a slugging percentage of 470. So I do think he's going to have an excellent year. That does not give him an OPS higher than Matt Wallner. But I just think his all-around play is going to matter.
I have also gone with Carlos Correa, and I went with a batting average of 298 with an on-base of 348 and an OPS of 792. I think he's going to hit 20 home runs, but I think the big number here, and I think this is going to be a big change from last season, I think he's going to hit over 90 RBI on the season.
Yeah,
that would be meaningful.
That would be incredibly meaningful. This is boring, though. I also went with Carlos Correa. I went with him with a slash line of 290, 388, 562, which gets that 950, I believe, if I did my math correctly. The guy's a double machine. I also said 25 home runs and 85 RBI. I think the guy's going to have an unbelievable year this year. I think he's going to be the MVP of the team. And like I said before, top 3 in MVP in all of baseball.
Yeah, this was interesting. Online, the votes went to Byron Buxton. And I kind of thought that, Hoges, you might lean that way after saying he's going to hit 35 homers.
I think he's going to. I think his average is going to. Yeah, no, but I think his average is going to dip a little bit this year. I think he's going to lean more into the power, and I think he's going to be more about like a 220 type of guy. So that's why I went with Correa here.
Ooh, 220 would be a rough go here, boys.
It would be, but it seems like his swing is so much, it's like suited to that. It's rare. We've seen stretches, don't get me wrong, where he's just hitting home runs and hitting for average, but it seems like as he's gotten older, there's been a little bit more of the home run type slugging, OPS high, but his on-base percentage and average has suffered a bit.
Okay, boys. My favorite category, season LVP, the least valuable player. Now, this doesn't mean just like some random guy, a utility guy who gets called up to mop up a few innings for guys who are on the IL. No, this is somebody who is meant to contribute this season, who we think will not contribute positively.
Hard to pick any of the big three pitchers because I do think that they're going to have solid years. Royce Lewis was tempting here if he's not able to get healthy, but I went with Chris Paddock. And maybe that's too safe of a pick. I just worry about a guy who's dealt with all the injuries and the surgeries. I think he's going to have an ERA over 5, but he's still going to pitch 70 plus innings. And so I think that's just going to be a damaging combination that they're going to give him a longer leash before they go to a Zebby Matthews or a David Festa.
Super boring. I wanted to go with Royce Lewis. It's so funny. It's so funny that you said you thought about going with Royce Lewis. And to be honest, I am a coward because I would not put the name in the box because I thought I would get so much hate for putting Royce Lewis in this box. I would. And I wanted to do it. And I wanted to say he's not going to be productive. He's going to struggle to find a good position to play defensively. And he's not going to be the guy who's hitting all these homers. And then I turned yellow, boys. I am a coward. I backstepped. And I said, okay, I'm going to go with the safe pick, Chris Paddock. I'm going to say he's often injured. He's not going to get deep into games. And I think he's replaced by Zebby or David Festa by May with a 6+ ERA.
See, I think they're going to stick with him longer than May. I think that'll be the problem, is that I think he's going to be less valuable because they're going to trust him too much.
So sort of one of those Dallas Keuchel situations, or who
a
else
little
did we
bit.
have?
I was trying to like J.A. What was his name?
Hap.
That's who it was. That's I could.
No, who was the other guy? Who was the Keuchel? Remember it went Keuchel, and then who was the fifth starter?
Was it Chris Archer that year?
Chris Archer.
Keuchel and Archer.
Oh,
the piggyback. Bring back the piggyback.
The piggyback with Over giving Keuchel a piggyback.
Well, David, I was
don't
not.
be Chris Paddock.
I
Just
was
don't be
not
Chris
a
Paddock.
coward. I knew what I would put would annoy the living daylights out of you, and I put it on there anyway.
No,
I went with Pablo
Take that
Lopez
back.
as the season
No.
MVP. I think he's going to have a 4.35 ERA, which is not terrible. That is not a terrible ERA at all. But I was going based on what we're hoping and our expectations is for him to be the ace of the squad. I think he falls off a lot this year. He continues from last year. I'm also, if we're being a little bit honest, trying to do a little bit of a reverse jinx. You all remember that I picked Joe Ryan last year to be the LVP, and he ended up being phenomenal and was like getting Cy Young votes before he got hurt. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that happens, but I just didn't like what I saw out of Lopez this year, and so I went that direction.
'Cause my chest is cold and my arms aren't.
Well, let's hope he's got those vests to keep him warm if his ERA is truly 4.35. But I truly thought, I knew there was no way you picked Royce Lewis. There was no chance that Andrew Hogenson would put Royce Lewis in this box for LVP.
Couldn't do it.
Let's keep moving here to our crazy prediction. Who knows? This could be anything. You never know what's
Dan
going to
does
come.
something totally reasonable here every single year.
Dan's like, Joe Ryan is going to have an ERA under 5, and he's going to make 20 starts.
I know.
It's like,
the SWR one last year.
It was a good one. You just undersold it a little bit.
I did.
Yes.
I should have been bolder. And then I think it was Eddie Julian the year before. Again, difficult. I think this qualifies as crazy given the history of these two players. I think Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton each play 120 games.
That I would take. If you told me, that I would take.
Because I think, Hoges, you mentioned this earlier, the Buxton had a full offseason and he actually kind of felt like he got to rest and he wasn't just rehabbing. I think Correa is healthy enough and has figured out the whatever magical foot potion that he's got down there to keep the plantar fasciitis away.
I don't believe that man's ever been
So I think that this is the year. Now, I did not include Royce Lewis in this calculation because I don't think that he's going to play 120 games, and that's almost mathematically impossible with his injury now. But I think that feels crazy enough given that Buxton hasn't played 120 games since, 2017?
I'll allow it. David, will you allow that one?
Is that
I'll
crazy?
allow it being crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Agreed.
That's what I want.
I think we got one.
Of course, Hoges should be mad that you would even dream, that you wouldn't just assume that as opposed to calling it a dream.
No, here's what okay, how about this, David? If I'll backtrack to our earlier conversation, if you told me that Royce Lewis would be the only one hurt at the beginning of spring training, and if you told me that I was going to get 120 plus games out of Correa and Buxton, I would have taken that in a heartbeat, assuming those guys are healthy the entire year.
Yeah, that's like me saying, okay, well, the big three, none of them are going to play any games, but the Twins win the World Series.
I take
okay,
that.
well, yeah, you're still taking that.
Yeah,
yes, of course you're
for
taking that deal.
Yeah,
because it's
sure.
ridiculous. Oh my goodness. Okay, I had a few here. I didn't know which one to go with. I struggled. I went back and forth, but this is what I'm going to say, boys. I think that Ty France returns to form and he signs a big contract next season. That's what I think happens. I think that the way that he talks gives me a little bit Josh Donaldson type vibes, because he says things like, I don't know why the analytics hate me. I think I'm a great first baseman. Like things like that are just sort of like, Dan, I don't know if you've ever had a student say something like, I don't know why Mr. Thompson hates me. Like, clearly this is the greatest paper that anyone has ever written.
Yeah, I've had that before.
Yeah. That's sort of how it feels when you're like, well, the analytics just don't like me. Maybe that quote was taken a little bit out of context, but that's kind of how it felt. Like, I'm way better. Like, the eye test is clearly better than these analytics that people have put their entire lives into to try and figure out what defensive run saves equals out to. But I do think that Ty France is poised to have a big year. And I think for him mentally, he has to know that this is probably his last shot to have any sort of continued career in the majors, is to perform well this season. And I think he's going to. I don't think he's going to top out any of these statistical categories, but I think he's going to play an adequate first base. And I think that he's going to get a lot lot of hits and get on base.
You know, that reminds me of somebody recently.
Well, don't worry, be happy.
I think the last career resuscitation attempt, I think, was with Joey Gallo, and that did not work. And now he's a relief pitcher. Now he's not a reliever.
I have higher hopes for Ty France, though. I think that he has a much higher floor than Joey Gallo did.
Yeah, and like we saw some interesting, like some positive signs from him out of spring training too. So I agree that it is crazy, but I think there's some stats behind. There's some analytics. How would I say that? There's some analytics behind
Ty's
that.
not crazy.
That he's gonna
is that what you're
around.
saying? Oh, we'll see.
Well, David, I'm going to rub some more salt into your wound.
Why? This isn't about me, Hoges.
I went with Pablo Lopez having the 4th best ERA as a Twins starter this year. I think my crazy prediction is that my LVP is going to be even worse than I'm doing his prediction right there, and that Ryan, Ober, and some combination of SWR, Paddock, Matthews is going to have a better ERA than Pablo this year too.
I take that deal every single time. Because if his ERA, just so, again, looking at the stats that you put in front of me,
I'm saying my crazy prediction, his ERA is going to be like 5.5 or something like that. It's going to be even worse than the 4.35 that I gave him.
You can't. You were so concerned about your
crazy
numbers adding up
prediction. No,
for the
the
other
crazy
categories.
prediction is the one that you get to go a little bit beyond everything. I'm trying to make it crazy. Pablo Lopez having a 4.35 ERA is not crazy.
How many brackets do you fill out, Hoges? Like, do you like fill out?
I'm a one.
About 1,000.
No, I'm a
Okay,
one
I'm a
guy.
one bracket guy too.
I can never see more
so
than
then
one.
my question, I guess, would be, do you feel like all your predictions have to be like synergistic? Like they all have to be possible? No. Okay, all right. So you're hedging a little bit.
I do add up the numbers if I'm going to pick like one of them to equal that, but I do not, because like we've had it before where we gave David a lot of crap because he had Byron Buxton hitting 45 home runs with 180 RBIs and an on-base percentage of 750, and he wasn't the MVP.
Jose Miranda.
I think you're allowed to hedge your bets in these.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm just saying, this annoys me greatly. That's what I'm trying to say. You can't, the fact that you're like, well, none of my predictions need to make sense. And they can all be whatever I want them to be. It doesn't matter if they all align. That is terrible. It honestly, I will not be able to sleep tonight thinking about this. How did Hoges put this on the form knowing that they don't match up?
I knew you were going to be mad about that, but I thought my justification for it being a crazy prediction was allowed to be, part is allowed to be different.
This bothers me more than the number of times I have to explain to my daughter how edge pieces work when she's doing a puzzle. Like that.
Wait, they don't go in the middle?
I'm like,
oh man, that is annoying.
When she's like trying pieces that aren't edge pieces on the edge pieces, and I'm like, kiddo, does it have a flat side? What are you doing here? This is worse than that. This is worse than that, Hoges.
I don't know how to come back from that. You just insulted your daughter. I don't either.
I feel scolded right now.
I'm not. She's pretty good at puzzles. I'm just saying, every now and again, she forgets how edge pieces. Between this and the milk, I can't wait until my girl's like.
You're not giving me any props though right now. You're saying I didn't actually mean it for my daughter, but Hoges, you're worse. I feel.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that my level of annoyance, not that you're worse than my daughter, or that my daughter's worse.
I'm gonna play
whatever
this
the right way is for me to say this.
There we go. I think.
That's probably. I can't wait until my kid's like 25.
Yeah,
and she's like, "Hey, what was that podcast you guys used to do?" She goes back and listens. Like, "Dad, why were you yelling at me being a 4-year-old spilling milk not in the kitchen?" Like, I was like, "I'm sorry."
I had forgotten about that.
Oh
boy!
Oh,
we need to just watch some baseball, boys. It needs to happen.
It's got to be done. Okay, let's move on here. Big moment now.
My favorite part.
The record and the season finish for your Minnesota Twins. I'm going to start with the listeners, get that out of the way. The majority vote was that they will miss the postseason entirely. I hope that's not true. But now I'm very curious what you boys have to say. What's going to happen this season?
Are we doing both
Twins?
boxes at the same time? I think that makes sense.
I think that's the cleaner way to do it, yeah.
I'm being consistent with what I have said for the last couple months. I think they're 80 and 82. I think they're third in the Central behind the Royals and the Tigers. I don't think this is a playoff team because I think there's just too many question marks. I also look at the predictions that I made for this team, and that looks like a playoff team. But I
you're not going to yell at him.
How are you
You're
in
going to let him
puzzles?
say thank you.
So it's like when you pick.
Get the sounder ready.
Ogres are like onions.
I don't even need to wait. I know I'm gonna.
When
play
you
it.
pick a
Might as well get it out
15
of the
seed
way.
to beat a 2, you don't pick the 15 seed to beat the 7 the next game, right? Like, so you hedge.
do.
No,
You just
you
send
hedge.
it.
60% of the time, it works every time.
So I just, it doesn't add up to me. There's too many questions. We're asking too many guys to get better this year and too many guys to stay healthy. The Royce Lewis injury, the Brooks Lee injury worries me. To an extent, the Brock Stewart one does. I don't think Chris Paddock is going to be a reliable starter. And so I just see those questions, and I'm putting too many eggs in the Matt Wallner basket here to feel really good about this team.
The smooth Matt Wallner basket.
So that's what I'm going with. I think this is the first year I haven't predicted them
to
make the playoffs, but I just don't. I have a hard time seeing. Too much has to go right.
Fair enough. I've taken a different approach.
No, shocking.
Shocking. My historic optimism on the show. I think it is funny though. Like, I think people think about Dan on the show and they think of him as like sort of the even-keeled, more reasonable person, which I would agree. But I think what I like about me as a person is that I think, depending which episode, I am either the most optimistic Twins fan you've ever met in your entire life, or I'm a person who hates everything.
This episode
believes that the Earth is
this is the only episode that you are positive on. Like, then you like the rest of the year you just come back down. But you're always, well, I'll let you just say it. But like you're always like incredibly positive about what they're gonna do, and I love it.
It's a fun time to be me, Hoges, until that first pitch.
This is what I love about me.
All of my delirium drifts away, and I start to see the realization. I see the writing on the wall. I believe this team is going to finish with 90-plus wins, at 92 wins, 70 losses, and I believe they will lose to the Los Angeles Dodgers in the World Series.
Where to begin?
Really?
That's how? How do they do that?
What do you mean? They win
How
92
do they win
games.
92 games?
It's not that hard, Scott. Don't watch.
It's incredibly hard.
It's not that hard. You got to think. You get 16 wins off the bat against the White Sox. Okay? The Guardians cannot continue to be the posers that
David,
they
you
are.
can't do it for a year plus. You said it all year last year, and they won the division. You have to stop at some point. You can't be like, I knew the Guardians were going to get bad 5 years from now.
I did. I will continue to say it until it's accurate, Hoges, okay? Leave me alone. That's exactly what's going to happen. I think that they're going to do very well against the AL Central. I don't think the Guardians are going to have the Twins number like they had last season. And I think that early on in this season, they're going to rack up some wins. I think early on, we're going to see that this team is better than a lot of people think they're meant to be. I do think it is important to point out, too, that from the national media perspective, a lot of people, including Vegas, have the Twins winning the division. So this isn't insanity, what I've put here. It's not like I said they're going to win 117 games and win the most games ever. I'm just saying that they're going to win the division, and I think that they're going to perform very well. And I'm not the only one on this side of the scale, is all I'm trying to say.
You're not the only one on this podcast either. I had them at 90 and 72 and losing in the World Series as well. And that's why it's weird, though, because I had them at 81 and 81 and third in the AL Central. And then I was thinking about it, and they were 70 and 53 or whatever it was on September 1st. And they fell apart. They got some injuries. They lost Ryan. And so we talk about we don't want them just running it back. Well, for a few months of the season last year, running it back actually sounded pretty attractive. I think they're going to have a top 3 rotation in baseball. I think the bullpen's going to be good. I don't think it's going to be as good as everyone's saying it is, where it's the number 1 bullpen in all of baseball, but it's going to be good. And I'm hopeful that the guys that took a step back take a step forward this year, and the guys that took a step forward last year take another step forward. I talked myself into it. I pulled a David. I'm with you, David. Let's go.
I love it, and I love that you criticized me a bunch ahead of time. That made it totally
I was
worth
quiet
it.
on the prediction. I was quiet. If you listen back, Dan was the only one making fun of you. I knew my time was coming.
Good to note. Boys, that's all we have for the predictions. A couple of quick notes as far as moves around the league. The Guardians have locked up BB for 5 years, $48 million, a crazy amount of money. Kyle Gibson signs back with the Orioles for $5.5 million. The Tigers signing Manny Margot to a 1-year, $1.3 million deal with an additional 1.2 available for plate appearance incentive bonuses. How has that man land a job in the AL Central? How is that even possible?
I mean, they played 18 games against her, or 19 or whatever it was last year, like you would think.
Yes.
He must not have pinch
and
hit
he pinched
against
hit
them.
15 of them.
I mean, even the dullest penny turns up once, or what's the phrase?
Oh, wow.
Never heard
Even
that one before.
What? Oh, it's a broken.
I knew exactly what to do, but in a much more real
It's
sense,
the
I
clock
had no
one. I
idea
meant to
what
say.
I'm not superstitious, but
That one makes a lot more sense.
It's
little
the broken
stitious.
clock. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. That's what I meant to say.
That's where we're at. Okay, good. Good, Dan. So one thing here, we did have a interesting question. Again, folks, you can text the show. There's a link in the description of each of the episodes. Just click send us a text. It'll come straight to the show. But this was an interesting question posed by a listener, so I'm gonna head us to the mailbag for a quick moment.
Men for the Win mailbag.
Of course nobody needs mail.
So we've mentioned it a whole bunch of times on this show. The collapse, the historic collapse of this team last season. This is what listener Michael asks. He says, what makes this team better than the team that stopped caring in September last season?
I think it's simple. I think it's two names, Joe Ryan, Carlos Correa. Like, I think that is the biggest piece. I think there's a few other aspects of that as well, but with those two guys, I think it ended differently last year.
I don't see too much difference. I think that's why I'm not as high on them as you guys are. Because I don't know. I want them. I want this. I want to be wrong. I totally want to be wrong. I just don't. I think we saw a lot of that team. I'm worried that Royce Lewis is not going to be as effective even when he comes back. I'm worried that there's just something about him that is not the same as what we hoped it was. I'm worried that maybe Trevor Larnach, who I don't even think we said his name, just may not be a great outfielder, may not be a great hitter, and the Twins' outfield depth is tested. Almost, and we're seeing a lot of Kersey, which I don't know that we want to see a lot of Deshaun Kersey. I'm worried that Brooks Lee's back is not right, and so that means we see more of Eddie Julian and Willie Castro playing second base. I'm worried that Carlos Correa has another injury. I just too many worries, and maybe I'm too worried.
But would you both agree, though, that question is kind of the crux of this season? Like, that's the question that we all want answered. And we may disagree with it, but like what the answer is. But I think that is a great question. I think it sums up this season.
This is what I'm going to say. I think that the reason I have so much optimism in this team is because of the starting rotation. And I think even if this team struggles offensively, not to the extent that they struggled last season, obviously towards the end, but even if they're just adequate, this is the opposite of the Bomba squad, where it was, the pitchers could give up 5 runs and you'd still have hope that the Twins team could put up 6. No problem. This is a very different team, and this team is focused more on the defensive side of the ball. I am concerned about the health of the infield and whether or not they're going to provide the defense that's going to be necessary for these pitchers to sort of reap the rewards of their adequate pitching. But I do think this team will be good, and they're going to win a lot of baseball games on the backs of these starters and relievers. I think pitching wins championships, and the Twins have that. They have pitching.
And they have depth at the starting pitching, too.
Hope you're right. I hope you're right. I hope I'm wrong. I'm just looking to 2026. That's the year, boys. That's going to be the year.
No, stop it. Stop it. Okay. Boys, this is one of the few segments we're going to do in this show. And then I think it's time to get out of here. But let's go to our Puckett's picks for the first time this season.
And we'll see you tomorrow night. Puckett's picks.
Now, boys, this is the time where we pick the player who we think is going to perform best in the next series, in this case, the first series of the season. We open up against the St. Louis Cardinals on Thursday. I'm very excited. I'm headed to the watch party at Target Field. I'm super pumped. I'm so ready for baseball. I, however, won Puckett's picks last season, so I do not get to pick first. The listeners always pick first. One quick housekeeping note. We have updated the scoring that grounding into a double play is no longer -1. Grounding into a double play is now -2. Now, we did that because Max Kepler is no longer on the team. It just is a much more impactful play. We think that -2 is a little bit more fair as far as that statistic goes. But the listeners have taken Byron Buxton off the board for the first pick. And so I think who finished third between you guys? Was it Hoges or was it Dan?
Wasn't it Dan by a landslide?
I think it was me by a landslide.
Yes,
Thank you, Hoges,
for
the landslide
Dan Thompson
metaphor
with the next pick.
Well, I think I have to pick Matt Wallner, and so that's who I'm going to pick. He's leading off. I'll get to root for the first at bat a little bit harder than you guys will.
Well, I hate this new rule about who I'm about to pick, but I'm pretty sure his feet and his ankle work. So I'm going to go with Carlos Correa. Hopefully it's not like last year or the year before where he's just grounding into 8 million double plays all the time. I think that's why the listeners picked Buxton too, because he's not going to do it ever because he's too fast. But I'm going with Carlos Correa with that 950 OPS. He's got to get going sometime soon. So why not St. Louis?
That's a good pick. I knew that these would be the names off the board. I wasn't sure who I was going to go with. I have to choose. Do I really believe in my crazy prediction of Ty France having a bounce back season? Or do I go with the guy who is going to be the most dangerous hitter in all of baseball in just 1 or 2 seasons? Yeah.
I am not throwing away my shot.
That's right. I am going with my boy, Jose Miranda.
I mean, let's hope that all of these things come true, right? Puckett's Picks is such an optimistic moment, so let's hope that we're talking about
it is
10 points a piece, not -3, is which maybe it will be now with all these double plays that the guys get ground into. So. Well, gentlemen, this has been a wonderful episode. Listeners, we will be back with our first regular episode on Sunday night, Monday morning. We'll have the recap of the Cardinals series with all of our segments. It was nice to hear some of those segment sounders, guys. It's been a little while since we've heard them.
Yeah.
And I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and send us out. Folks, if you like what you hear, please tell a friend. You can follow us on X at Min for the Win. You can find our Min for the Win Facebook and Instagram pages. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast on your favorite platforms so you're notified when new episodes are available. And if you could leave us a rating or a like, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show further, you can find us on Patreon. The link is in the description. Thank you for listening, and as always, go Twins. That'll wrap up another episode of Min for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, 2 avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins.